Ya, baik Bapak Ibu semuanya, izin untuk memulai, Bu Okta.
Ya.
Oke, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Oke, Honorable atau yang terhormat bagi kami Profesor Madya Dr. Muhammad Hairi Ahmad, Dekan Pusat Pengajian Teknologi Multimedia dan Komunikasi SMMTC University Utara Malaysia. And honorable all delegations from University Utara Malaysia, Associate Professor Dr. Romlah Ramli, and Dr. Adibah Ismail. Okay, welcome in Indonesia, especially in Universitas Muhammadiyah Jakarta and our department, communications department. Okay, good afternoon, Bapak dan Ibu semuanya, ladies and gentlemen, all delegations. It's my pleasure to welcome you all in this prestigious event in public lectures and sharing sessions for research collaborations, University Utara Malaysia and Universitas Muhammadiyah Jakarta. And today we have the privilege of hosting distinguished speakers from UM who will share their expertise on various topics, especially in intercultural communications and media freedom. Yes. Okay. So before we start of our main agenda, for the first speaker, it will be Dr. Adibah. Wait, allow me to before this year. May I? May I David with your CV before? Yes. Okay. Dr. Adibah Ismail, Dr. Adibah Binti Ismail, right? Okay. Who will present media freedom from the perspective of a social journalist. Yeah, and a well-qualified academicians trained in communications field since bachelor degree with Hans in communications, continued with 2 master degrees in managerial communications and communications management, followed by PhD in communications with special interest in investigative journalism, and experiences and currently working as a senior lecturer in communications department SMMTC and UM, of course. Eager to fully involve in teaching, researching, and publishing about communications, especially journalism and media. And so many journals she has published, of course, at various scales, international, national, and internal in university. Okay, I think we are going to start your presentation. So because our time is limited here, we're also sorry for the late, yeah. And then I think Dr. Adibah, yes, the time is yours. The microphone, please. I think it's already on here.
How long do I have?
Yeah, okay.
How long? 30 minutes?
20.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Since it is 20 minutes, so I need to proceed straight away. All right, so this topic, media freedom, is my interest because in investigative journalism, it is closely related to what media can do and what media cannot do. So this is a research from my team, me, Dr. Romlah, and we have another one, Dr. Jamila. Okay, so my slides is very simple, just asking you very simple questions, but we'll see it later. So from your understanding, who is journalist? These are the journalists, right? Because they are the one with the microphones asking questions, right? But in this era, we have social journalists. Okay, this one is a group of reporters. Oh, okay. It asks here, how about you and how about me? Are we reporters? Okay, because in this era of social journalism, okay, everybody can be the journalist. It's just that the difference between us and the journalists, it is they are professional and we are unprofessional. But in the era of internet, okay, we can become journalists, but with that platform that allow us to write whatever we want, there is actually a problem with the agenda setting where, hold on, yeah. Here, in the agenda setting theory by McComb and Shaw, okay, we have, more. Oh, sorry, I forgot the slides there. Next. One more. One more. This one, yes. Okay. The pink color, okay, in the McCombs and Shaw agenda setting theory, we have these gatekeepers and influential media. They are the apparatus of the government that controls what being published to the public. But with social journalists, can you press next? Yeah, the social journalist, we don't have that. So we can just publish whatever we want. Therefore, there's no more media agenda, public agenda, and policy agenda. So the government, they need actually to control, because we have our own agenda to develop the country, to maintain status quo. But with social journalists, they are actually demolish the control. Therefore, we need actually a strategy to regain control of the agenda. Okay, so this is a research. Can you please proceed to next? Yeah. One more. Okay. Okay, therefore the government needs better strategies, because we want to secure the cyberspace. We don't want everybody to publish whatever they want. Okay, because in Malaysia, for example, we have multiracial, and they have their different perspective of what they want for the country. Okay, so one approach holds is that if you just produce content, they shall qualify as journalists. Okay, but not everybody in social journalist in the social journalist world, okay, they don't understand what is press freedom, what they can publish, what cannot, because they don't actually know the power of the media, especially social media, where teenagers and those who have the voting powers, they are actually following social media compared to the mainstream media. That is the trend in Malaysia. So social media has more power compared to mainstream, but the government has less control in social media compared to the mainstream media. So what is the strategy to gain public attention and to make sure that the cyberspace is secure with the social journalism era? So they say that if social journalists wants to be journalists, they need to have equal rights and equal responsibilities as journalists. Okay, so you have to be responsible. But then how to do that? Because we don't even have the database of who are these social journalists. Okay, we know that we have some popular Facebook, we have bloggers, yeah, so many platforms, and they have a lot of followers, views, more than mainstream media. And we don't have a list of registered members, for example. They are everywhere, and they can even be outside Malaysia and write about Malaysia, say something bad about Malaysia, for example. So this is a research that we, next, please. This is a research where we try to understand, okay, what is their perspective on press freedom, what they can actually publish and what they cannot publish. Okay, in terms of understanding, okay, the freedom to voice out any news, information, ideas, or thoughts in their writing without any limitations. They should be allowed to report any news. Thank you. Okay, this is the first area where we want to explore their understanding, what they understand about press freedom. So we asked them, to frame
Cek.
sekarang boleh dengar? Okay. All right. Okay. First stage, we want to know their understanding, what they know about press freedom, because they are not all professional journalists. Some of them doesn't even know what is journalism and the power of media. So these are the findings. They say the freedom to voice out any news, information, ideas, or thoughts in their writing without any limitations, meaning that is total freedom. And they should be allowed to report any news that they believe is accurate. And then the government should give them freedom to provide accurate information to the public. So their general understanding is almost the same with the general understanding. So they should have total freedom. But in practice, that is not what happened. Yes, okay. Current status. In this one, we explore their practice. The first one is their understanding and then the practice. Okay, in their understanding, they said they should be absolutely free. But here, when during the practice, they said the press freedom for social journalists is not absolute, meaning that they know there are some control from the government. And then the freedom that social journalists gain nowadays is better compared to the old days, meaning that they put themselves in a platform where less control by the government. That's why they say they have more freedom compared to before. Using the mainstream media, we have less freedom. And then they say that social journalists are still practicing the guidelines and following the laws created by the government, even though they are publishing through social media. This one, it is related to the definition of social journalists that I skipped just now. It says that social journalists, they can be professional or unprofessional. So because they are the combination of both, some of them, they know the guidelines, they know the practice. That's why they still follow the guidelines, meaning that the current status shows that they are not wild enough, meaning that they still know their limits on what to publish and what not. Okay, next. Okay, this is what they expect in the future. So they expect that total freedom to provide public information. They admitted that in practice, some limitations and boundaries need to be followed. And then they proposed the government to produce guidelines for social journalists. So the top two, this one is quite normal because this is what being practiced by professional journalists as well. But the last one, they asked for guidelines for social journalists. This is actually something that we don't expect because the professional journalists, they were controlled by rules and regulations. They are controlled by company policy. But this one, it seems like they want to be guided, but they still want to be free. So they ask for guidelines. Just that if they want to follow, they follow. If they don't want to follow, then they will do whatever they want. Meaning that they don't want to be bound by laws and regulations. So it suits their platform where they have the freedom to publish. Okay, so as a conclusion, the press freedom should be absolute for social journalists, but they know their limits. So we need to give them proper education, proper guidelines, because it seems like our informants, they are willing to follow. They are willing to guide it. So it is important to educate and spread awareness among the public, especially social journalists, on how to use their freedom while writing on social media. Because the use of social media, that is the most dangerous threats to the government. So when they ask for guidelines, our team is preparing the guidelines as our final product for the research. So we will submit soon, inshallah. I guess that's all from me. Thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you, Dr. Adilya. We all know that social journalists face a number of challenges in their work, yeah. Because in the context of social journalism, media freedom is especially important. Social journalists use social media platform, of course, to report on news and events that may not be covered by traditional media. But yeah, they are often to be subject to online harassment, maybe, or maybe threats from those who don't want their things published or their story to be told. That is of the challenges from the social journalists. Maybe we can share to Bapak Ibu di sini, maybe who wants to ask something or give the suggestions or maybe sharing the experience about become social journalist, maybe one of the social journalists, or maybe in Indonesia we call apa tuh kemarin? Netizen, netizen,
Oh.
netizen, netizen. Yeah,
This one is quite different from netizen.
yeah.
Because netizen, it is closer to citizen journalism.
Citizen,
Yeah,
yes.
citizen journalism meaning that they are all unprofessional journalists. They are not
Okay.
trained in journalism. But
Okay.
social journalists, they are the combination of both.
Okay.
In Malaysia, there are a few portals
Yeah.
managed by professional journalists who resign from mainstream,
Okay.
and then they create their own agency, and
Okay.
they have under them a lot of journalists.
Okay, so that's the differences.
Yeah.
Okay. Oke. Oke, Bapak Ibu ada yang mau bertanya atau memberikan komentar? Lanjut dulu. So, in Malaysia, what are the ethical considerations for social journalists? The differences, ethical journalism, maybe they have to, you said that before, social journalists, they have to put the rights equals with the responsibility. What kind of ethical things that they have to be considered when they publish something in their activity?
For now, there's no guidelines specific for social journalists, but we have for professional journalists. So it seems like they are following the same guidelines. And the most sensitive issues that cannot be touched in Malaysia, the first one is about the race.
Yeah.
Because we have the biggest race, Malays, Chinese, Indian.
Okay.
So issues about these races cannot be touched.
Races everywhere.
Yeah. And
everywhere, every time.
Yes. And then about religion.
Yeah, we're facing the same issues.
And then about the royals.
Royals.
Yeah.
It's Indonesia, friends. Of course, yeah.
Special rights for Malays. Those are the sensitive issues.
Sensitive issue. Okay, yeah. Some like Indonesia, similar with Indonesia, we're facing the same issue, ya. Kecuali tentang tadi royal, because we are a republic here. So, what is the rule? I have one question already, Bapak Ibu. So, okay. Please, Pak Ali, one of our lecturer here, Pak Ali. Okay, please.
I have simple questions. According to Malaysian experience, how we can avoid fake news or hoax, especially during election?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because in Indonesia we come to the elections era. So there's so many hoax are, so many things that we have to do, of course, in media. Maybe you will give your perspective. Okay.
That's a very difficult answer. I'll try. In Malaysia, we have MCMC, a department under the government. They are monitoring
Monitoring.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we have a sebenarnya.my where you can go and check whether that news is fake or it's true. Yeah, whether it is from the right source or not.
Okay.
Yeah, but that is the official part.
Okay. So we have to look for and recheck about the source.
The other one is about maybe we need more media literacy to
Yeah.
teach the citizens
Okay.
to how to evaluate the news, to know whether it's fake or it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Okay.
yeah.
So the control is the key.
Not the control, the education is
And
the key.
education and
Yeah.
the and the monitoring. I mean, yeah.
The monitoring, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Pak Ali.
Every next wants to add.
Oh, you silakan. You want to add something? Say, just please.
Siang pagi tadi saya juga berbicara dengan Prof. Pak Dekan Mercu Buana, Fakulti Komunikasi, Ahmad Mulyana. Kita bicarakan tentang perkara yang sama, iaitu tentang fake news.
Ya.
Netizen itu begitu ekspresif.
Ya, betul.
Dibicaranya apa-apa saja yang dipikirkan.
Betul.
So whether we need a kind of laws
Ya.
or what? Dan untungnya di Malaysia itu kita sudah ada undang-undang tertentu seperti yang Dr. Adibah sebut tadi. Satunya kawalan dari MCMC, Malaysian Communication and Multimedia Council. Yang ini itu tujuannya adalah untuk supaya tidak melanggar the 3 Rs.
Yes.
Royals, race, and religion.
Really.
Di Malaysia, mengikut konstitusi kita itu, ketiga-tiga ini sudah ada di dalam perlembagaan.
Oh, okay.
You cannot say something that, criticize
Yeah.
the royalty.
Folk something.
Itu sudah ada. Yeah. So when you do that in the social media, you're really against the law.
Yeah.
Tentang agama. Di Malaysia itu, agama resminya Islam.
Yeah.
Makanya agama lain tidak boleh untuk di-persuade supaya orang masuk agama yang lain. If you do that, sudah langgar perundangan.
Yeah.
Tapi saya difahamkan di Indonesia tidak ya.
Oh, kita
hanya-
punya IPA punya, cuma implementasinya we don't know
Ya,
how they works.
sebabnya dalam perlembagaan itu sendiri menyebut tidak boleh mempengaruhi orang Islam untuk
Masuk
masuk agama lain. Itu dalam perlembagaan kita sudah jelas. Ya. Tapi di sini saya faham dia very general.
Ya.
Ketiga itu berkaitan dengan race, ethnicity. Di Malaysia di dalam perlembagaan sudah ada nyatakan keistimewaan, a special rights of the Bumiputra, orang aslinya, orang Melayunya.
Oh.
Jadi kalau dipersoalkan tentang kenapa orang Islam, orang Melayu itu ada beasiswanya, itu tidak boleh dipersoalkan sudah sebab sudah ada di dalam perlembagaan, ya. Jadi kita lihat di sini satunya undang-undang itu. Yang kedua saya setuju itu bahawa kita harus ada, kita sebagai educators, sebagai pendidik itu tidak harus saja berkuliah di dalam kuliah menjelaskan kepada mahasiswa-mahasiswi, we cannot do this, we cannot do that. Saya fikir sudah sampai masanya kita harus ke masyarakat untuk membuat what we call media literacy.
Yeah.
Itu jauh lebih berkesan daripada kita hanya tumpukan kepada persoalan law.
Yeah.
Sebabnya kalau kita ada lawyers yang hebat itu, mungkin ya
tidak ini lagi ya, tidak berperan lagi ya.
Tapi yang lebih baik, sebab saya tadi pagi perbicaraan saya dengan Prof. Ahmad Mulyana itu saya mengatakan bahawa now the world is facing the crisis of values.
Ya.
Kita berhadapan dengan krisis nilai.
Ya.
Hatta kita ini orang Islam, tetapi apabila dalam politik bicaranya enggak ikut
Islam ya.
Islam ya.
Kayak sekuler tiba-tiba.
Ya, jadi itu lebih kepada bukan peraturan, tetapi lebih kepada how we govern ourselves. Itu
Yes.
pandangan saya. Tambahan.
Okay,
Terima kasih.
okay. Thank you very much. How about that, Pak Ali? Is there something you want to ask or you want to add?
In case that fake news is sometimes or even quite often are distributed by buzzer,
Yeah.
and we know that buzzer is controlled by certain elements of maybe the government or political oppositions. So this is very difficult to handle, I think. But I don't know how in Malaysia.
Yeah, maybe you want to respond?
Ya, ya.
Sebenarnya itulah satu, kita di Malaysia itu kita ada undang-undangnya. For example, undang-undang what we call bukan fake news tapi berkaitan dengan hasutan.
Oh yeah.
You cannot write something
Provocations.
provocation.
Yeah.
Itu pun undang kita sudah ada. Saya tidak pasti di Indonesia ya. Tetapi untuk fake news macam yang tadi Mas sebut tadi, kita ada banyak platform yang boleh kita verifikasikan, dan sekarang ini yang terbaru yang terkini itu setiap hari di dalam saluran berita utamanya prime time sekitar pukul 8 malam itu, di hujung rancangan berita itu dihalatkan apakah fake news of today.
Oh.
Ya, itu satu kaedah yang kita buatlah untuk menangani fake news.
Hoax and fake news.
But of course, currently in Malaysia, we believe that we don't need another laws because the current laws is sufficient to manage or
To reduce, yeah. Okay, it's very good in Malaysia. Maybe we can adopt in Indonesia, so we don't have to spread any kind of hoax in our daily activity, yeah. Because they're so easy for us to spread and be brought in our for the fake news or maybe for the hoax. Oke, Bapak Ibu ada lagi yang mau memberikan pertanyaan atau respon? Atau Bu Winda mungkin mau memberikan pengalaman terkait pengelolaan media? Ya, berkaitan dengan social journalism, not yet. Okay, Bu Okta, maybe you want to share something about this topic?
I think it's quite interesting, ya. Maybe di Malaysia mungkin similar with Indonesia about fake news and hoax. So, akan selalu ada hoax dan fake news. Apalagi kita sedang menghadapi tahun politik yang next for general election. Dan mungkin nanti bisa menjadi future research collaboration about that topic, that kind of topic, journalism, and then konsep social journalism itu sangat menarik karena pembahasan di Indonesia saya rasa belum terlalu banyak terkait konsep-konsep social journalism. Cuman saya lihat ada, tapi belum ada specific research about that. Maybe nanti kita bisa salah satu kolaborasi riset yang bisa kita angkat adalah topik tersebut seperti itu. Memang kami tidak ada konsentrasi jurnalistik. Kita hanya ada major communication department. We have majoring and broadcasting, PR and advertising. But journalism, online journalism is one of our subject. So only one of our subject. Then, but our lecturer, some of them are journalists from Republika, and then di Muhammadiyah. So I think that kind of topic can we elaborate in the next collaboration research from the perspective of Malaysia
And
and Indonesia
Yeah.
about social journalism. I think.
Actually, in my slides, can you please go to a case study from Indonesia? There's a research done by Mas Duki 2022.
Oh,
It is about digital attacks between 2014 and 2019 presidential elections. One more. No. Yeah. No, next. No, down one more.
Yes.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
oh, I see.
Yeah, this one, it says that digital attacks between 2014 and 2019 presidential elections. So they said that social journalists is the politicians' apparatus to spread false information. So I don't know the situation in Indonesia. How bad is it with this attack?
Very, very bad, I think. And cyber wars was happening, and I think terjadi lagi saat ini. Gitu. Dan ini akan menarik ketika kita mendekati bulan-bulan on February we have a general election, dan ini kan mendekati seperti itu. Jadi suitable topics for that time, this time. Maybe we can talk later about collaboration. Okay, one topic is already done. Okay, thank you, Dr. Adiba.
Okay, thank you, Bu Okta and Dr. Adiba. Anyone? I think if there is no questions anymore, so thank you very much, Dr. Adiba, for your presentations. And Bapak Ibu, I think we have to move to the second speakers. Yeah, we have here. Let me introducing Associate Professor Dr. Romlah Binti Ramli is a university lecturer at University Utara Malaysia, of course, and also an assessor for accreditations for academic journal, etc. Her area of specializations are communications management, social change, and communications culture. There's so many articles, teaching modules, and journals she has published, and related to her specializations on cultural communications, new media communications, and managerial communications. And in addition, Associate Prof. Romlah has also become the recipient of various research grants programs at various scales. Of course, we have to learn more about the research grant from Prof. Romlah. So I think that's your time to present your presentations about appropriate practices in social and cultural communications in Malaysian context. So please, Prof. Romlah, yes, Prof. Romlah.
Just call me Dr. Rom. It's okay. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat petang kalau di Malaysianya. Di sini salam sore.
Selamat sore.
Selamat sore. Izinkan saya berbicara dalam bilingual, sama ada bahasa Melayu kok bisa dipahami dan juga bahasa Inggeris, insyaAllah. Seperti yang difahamkan, di sini tiada komunikasi antara budaya, tapi ethics, I guess there are the big issue we have to discuss, and maybe it relates also with the Gen Z and now Gen Alpha, which is what Dr. Hairi said. About how the ethical judgment made for the netizen share the comments and about the posting from the social media. But in my topic today is much related to the Malaysian context of communication or interaction. But this slide is prepared for the students. Unfortunately, today is the other audience group, but no problem. We can just sharing the info what we are practicing in Malaysia. It might be also the focus, or it might be the research collaboration topic relate to the ethics between Malaysia and Indonesia context. So yeah, this is like a fundamental, basic of communication, and I really believe that all the lecturers here are what you call that, expert in communication area. So yeah, we had learned a lot of communication and we have read a lot of definition of communication. So the next is, we do understand communication is to build the relationship, okay, to get the contact, okay, to get the things is agreed in the negotiation agreement in something that we had taught each other. So we are trying to get close. Even today, to get this event happen, we do have a lot of communication interaction. I believe that Dr. Hairi have do the best for this event, also bring us to here today. And that's the basic communication. Then we do understand about the social communication. So actually the communication or human communication is tell us a lot on the why we have to communicate. Okay, by creating the same meaning, accepting, it might be giving the same what we call that judgment. It might be practicing a lot of understanding. Okay, when we talk about communication, it's not only limit to just deliver the message. It might be also we have to give what we say that the same might be in even in different context. It might be different culture. We try to put the interaction in the same understanding, okay, to limit or might be to remove all the barriers and so on. So next, please. So do you think that communication is necessary for intercultural relationship? So nowadays we are under one roof or might be di bawah satu bumbung, okay, etnik ataupun kita kata di bawah satu rumpun Nusantara. Namun perbezaan seperti bahasa. Okay, dari semalam, dari 1 Disember kami sampai sehinggalah hari ini, pelbagai bahasa yang dituturkan oleh kami kemungkinan adanya perbezaan, dan yang dituturkan oleh communicator among Indonesian juga menjadi perbezaan, sehingga kan kami perlu membuka Google Translate. Sebelum ditertawa, better kita semak. Itu adalah salah satu juga dari segi etika dalam komunikasi antara budaya. Disebabkan ada perbezaan, ada bahasa atau perkataan yang kaya sama, tetapi bedanya bahasa maksud. Like kalau di sini disebut ibu seperti satu panggilan hormat. Kalau di sana ibunya adalah emak atau mother. Macam ya ibu, saya ibu, ini pun ibu. Kalau dipanggil bapa, itu adalah address kepada father. Itu. Ada juga perkataan-perkataan yang contohnya semacam perkataan satu iaitu galak. Tapi di sini maksudnya marah.
Angry.
Ya, marah. Angry. Tapi di sana galaknya maksudnya beda dan tidak perlu dihuraikan. Saya rasa tidak sesuai. Jadi itu. Saya mengajar di komunikasi antara budaya dan saya suka ingatkan sebelum anda merantau ke mana-mana negara, confirm the meaning, because dia akan ada contradict. Perception of the receiver, it might be kita kata mengganggu impresi diri kita. Itu salah satu. So communication memang sangat berkait dengan intercultural relationship at first. Okay, this is the common barriers of communication. I guess this is also the platform ataupun kita kata basis, okay, sebagai satu asas kemungkinan boleh dikembangkan dalam komunikasi antara budaya, terutama dalam penyelidikan. Saya tidak pasti, mungkin ada yang berminat untuk bidang ini. Okay, so saya tidak mahu mendalam sebab ini adalah sebenarnya untuk student. Okay. Okay, saya masuk ke politeness theory. Next. Okay, see. Asas kepada perbincangan atau penyelidikan di peringkat PhD saya adalah berkaitan dengan kesopanan dan kesusilaan. Ianya tercatat dalam rukun negara Malaysia atau di sini disebut Pancasila. Pancasila kita mungkin berbeza, tapi satu asas dia adalah kesopanan dan kesusilaan. Itu asas utama. Dan perbincangan tentang kesopanan dan kesusilaan ini saya mengambil pendekatan Brown and Levinson 1987, which is politeness theory. Apa yang menyediakan tentang pengkajian tentang komunikasi berkaitan dengan antara budaya, kesopanan dan kesusilaan dalam bahasa Melayu. Ianya tidak menyentuh berkaitan perkara yang sangat halus dalam budi ataupun budi bahasa. Mungkin di peringkat di negara Indonesia ada perkataan yang lain yang bersesuaian. Tapi di Malaysia kita pakai budi bahasa.
Yeah.
So the translation of budi bahasa dalam English yang sangat tidak tepat, which is politeness is much relate on the action, but our budi bahasa is relate with language and also the verbal and non-verbal process. So hasil daripada platform berkenaan. So we are my study are much relate on budi bahasa as cultural appropriateness in Malaysian context. Mungkin sekejap lagi bolehlah kita akan responkan berkaitan budi bahasa atau budi di Indonesia. Okay, budi is a central the Malay culture. The Malay word budi is originated by Sanskrit budi, which means wisdom, understanding or intellect. So budi also relate on akal budi. Okay, how we can manage all sort the reaction ataupun perkara berkaitan kita mempunyai satu tingkat reasoning yang tinggi. So budi as moral behavior or virtue in manifest and budi pekerti. Okay, ini mungkin ada term-term yang agak sama dan mungkin juga berbeza. So a person with pekerti ataupun kita kata sini budi pekerti, which is the person who are having the right attitude, wise thinking and also gentleness of feeling.
Yeah.
Apa yang pasti saya rasa kalau netizen terutama tadi isu yang berkaitan dengan Dr. Adibah, jika ia memahami berkaitan dengan budi bahasa, so kita tidak perlu undang-undang.
Betul.
Kita tidak perlu education because we are the process of upbringing from the home, from the house and the early childhood education is much relate on who we are.
Yeah,
today.
they will always be polite to everyone. Yeah.
Kesopanan.
Ya, betul.
So mungkin saya juga berminat nanti saya pula tanya dengan audience di sini bagaimana memberikan praktisnya. Okay, so prosesnya melibatkan pelbagai lah. Kita mungkin agak berbeza hanya dari segi term, tapi the education of budi bahasa itu sendiri boleh dipertimbangkan di peringkat pendidikan and also dia sangat relate dengan the proses komunikasi bukan setakat dalaman juga luaran. Kalau boleh saya bicarakan di sini ada lebih kurang lebih dalam 12 dimensi berkaitan dengan budi bahasa di Malaysia, iaitu mungkin berkaitan dengan keikhlasan diri, self sincerity, hormat menghormati, semangat hidup, menghulu dan menerima kemaafan, tolong menolong, prihatin, sabar, bertimbang rasa, toleransi, bersimpati, merendah diri, menghormati hak setiap individu, suci hati, berfikiran positif, amalan baik, benar, murah hati, berlemah lembut, ikhlas dan berterus terang. So the whole 20 dimension ini sebenarnya telah dibukukan di peringkat di Malaysia dalam di bawah satu kementerian, Kementerian Perpaduan. Telah dipakai sebenarnya. Nah, di sini saya tidak pasti. Mungkin ada berkaitan.
Butuh kayak buku etiket gitu ya, buku etiket ya.
Ya, tapi itu jugalah di Malaysia pun ada masalah dari segi hanya dibukukan, tidak disampaikan secara menyeluruh.
Tidak disosialisasikan.
Tidak
sama,
jugalah agak sama saya. Sebab tu kita kata ada maklumat tapi tidak dikembangkan, which is sepatutnya boleh disampaikan di peringkat pendidikan awal. Apa yang penting yang difikirkan sekarang ada pencapaian matematik, sainsnya, tapi tidak dari segi attitude. Pembinaan attitude. Okay, last slide. Okay, sini ada dua perkara ini saya tekankanlah. Apa guna berkain batik kalau tidak berbaju kasar? Apa guna memandang cantik kalau tidak berbudi bahasa?
Cakep.
So politeness is a sign of quality.
In Indonesia we always we used to adding cakep.
Cakep.
Cakep. Apa gunanya berkain batik kalau tidak berbaju kasak? Cakep. And then you continue the next rhyme.
Okay, so politeness is a sign of dignity.
Yeah.
Di mana pun kita, siapapun kita, okay, adalah satu maruah pada kita dari segi kesopanan. Dan dia bukan menunjukkan satu ketaatan atau satu kesetiaan kepada satu perkara. So maruah adalah walaupun agak subjektif, tapi dia sangat berkait dengan hasilnya fake news sekarang ini. Okay, terima kasih. Mohon maaf.
Okay, terima kasih. Associate Dr. Room. May I call you Dr. Room? Yeah, Dr. Room. That's interesting about intercultural communications because every day we have to face usually used to face intercultural communications issue. Maybe Bapak Ibu semuanya like me when I communicate with Ibu Lucy, she's a Javanese, I'm the Sundanese. Oh yeah, one of the what do you call it? Etnik suku Indonesia, banyak suku sekali di Indonesia ya. Yeah, in Indonesia too, Sundanese and Japanese is different. When we call I want a pisang. When I call pisang, we have the different perspective and different meaning. Some words but with different meaning for me as a Sundanese and for her as a Japanese. Pisang. When I say saya mau pisang, so I will bring banana. But when you ask her to bring pisang, she will bring papaya. Buah papaya. So that's a small thing, but it's different, and that's the intercultural communication, I think, in the small things in our daily life.
Kalau komunikasi antara budayanya berbeza dari segi maksud, tetapi still dalam kategori yang sama, itu dipanggil unik ya.
Unik.
Tapi kalau berbeza maksud, tapi dalam kategori yang sangat kontradik, which is satunya positif, yang satunya maksudnya agak negatif, iaitu boleh menyebabkan krisis.
So like something semiotics kind of semiotics.
Might be also relate to symbolic interaction.
Symbolic, interaksi simbolik ya. Baik, Bapak Ibu, ada yang mau di-share mungkin terkait dengan perbedaan selain pembahasan tentang pisang ini? Saya ini mungkin gedang. Gedang juga sama ya, Bu ya? Gedang papaya. Iya betul.
Gedang.
Kebanyakan ya kalau Jawa we call gedang. Gedang itu pisang, banana. But in Sundanese we call it papaya. Kebalikannya. Different meaning and different fruit, of course. But
Ini is a nice meaning.
Lebih banyak lagi ya. Oke. Iya, betul. Masuk lebok. Macam ya, itu bahasanya apa ini? Kasar. Something rude things ya. Kind meaning or maybe symbolic things. Maybe
Pisang in general is banana, right?
Yes.
But the younger generation, pisang means something that.
The
pisang. How about the lecture pisang?
Pisang.
Pisang.
Oh, something at Gen Z. So what is the meaning of pisang on that perspective?
Generation Alpha.
Generation Alpha. That is really not
interesting.
Not interesting.
The class is that.
It's not that important things lah gitu ya.
Not literally.
Between generasi. Is the language of the new generation.
So they create their own language. Okay, so so many problems dalam bahasa dan komunikasi. Komunikasi adalah something the most important thing in this life, but yeah, can create the most. Ya, banyak juga problem yang bisa disebabkan hanya karena misunderstanding when we communicate with others. So, Bapak Ibu, maybe you want to share something, Mbak Jani, about intercultural communication because we're from Aceh and this one is Padang, we're from Malaysia. Maybe bapak-bapak di sana mungkin mau menyampaikan.
Yeah, maybe I am.
Bali lagi, come on Bali, please. Tapi tidak tentang pisang lagi, tidak.
For many ASEAN students in the class, most of them are quiet. For us, quietness, kediaman, diam, meaning they are polite. But for Western people, quiet students, meaning they are stupid.
Yeah.
So the situation sometimes creates a misunderstanding.
Tension.
And also in a class here in UMJ, most of students are quiet. It is very difficult to ask them to ask questions because in their culture, quiet is polite. So how can we reconcile between politeness and quietness?
Okay.
Thank you.
Asian student.
Yeah, most of them, like in Indonesia, like in our university, they always mereka sering kali dia mungkin maybe because they don't understand or maybe they so shy to speak up in front of their friends or maybe I don't know, but memang ada perspektif seperti itu dan pemaknaan seperti itu memang ada. Between dari bukan ASEAN deh, kita nggak bisa mengeneralisasi ya.
But in experience, especially for Asian students, they're quiet.
Oh, Asian
Asian
students in general.
in general, but not this as the
I don't know in
stereotype.
Malaysia, but in Indonesia, I think it is true that most students are quiet because it is a sign of politeness.
Polite sekali.
Bisa doktor buat survei dan kenapa terlalu senyap kan? Environment Malaysia sama, masih sama.
Sama ya.
Tapi bagaimana kita apa ya?
Encourage mereka mungkin.
Ya,
untuk
encourage
encourage
kelas dan untuk lebih aktif sama ada dalam penglibatan atau partisipasi dalam kelas atau aktiviti yang memerlukan mereka berdiskusi. Mungkin agak malu bila berdepan. Itu mungkin kita definisi Asia bila malu di associate dengan diam, kediaman. Namun proses untuk aktif mereka ada mungkin berkaitan dengan aktiviti kelas. Hasil daripada itu juga kita mungkin juga berkaitan dengan ethics. Pada peringkat tertentu kediaman itu diperlukan. Contoh berbicara sama yang lebih senior, kan? Ataupun mungkin agree, ataupun ada satu konteks yang berbeza. Tapi pada konteks pendidikan, ianya agak kontradik dengan keperluan like SCL, student centered learning, the process. Okay, we are nurture them, okay, to help them to communicate as much as they can. Budaya sama, perkembangan sama. Hasilnya mungkin berbeza berdasarkan aktiviti. Disebabkan itu juga pendidikan di Malaysia telah kita kata dibangunkan atau dimajukan dengan penglibatan beberapa peringkat pendidikan ataupun aktiviti kelas yang melihat kepada sumbangan pelajar perlu lebih berbanding dengan pensyarah yang berkaitan atau dosen. Begitu juga yang keterlibatan dari aspek pencapaian, contoh OBE dan sebagainya yang dipraktis di Malaysia lah. Hasil daripada itu pelajar sekarang lebih ke hadapan bukannya pensyarah yang
Iya.
promote everything.
Iya.
Now we are having a like sulam, apa singkatannya? Community service, okay?
Oh.
Pengamatan, okay, atau community service. Pelajar terlibat keseluruhan bermula dari perancangan, praktis dan juga penglibatan SME,
Yeah.
usaha kecil, desa untuk dimajukan.
Yeah.
Jadi pensyarah hanya memberi input dan pelajar
Okay.
perlu lebih ke depan. Jadi proses dikatakan kediaman tu tidak boleh berlaku.
Oh.
Langsung tidak. Yang pelajar perlu lebih aktif dan engage.
That's our PR mungkin ya, pekerjaan rumah kita ya, mungkin to encourage our students to be more active.
I agree with you. But it is that the students are quiet. It is formed not only in our university.
Yeah.
It is happened since the beginning.
Because the high context maybe ya.
Yeah, in our family, for example,
Yeah.
we like our children to be quiet rather than naughty. And good. And I think so. It is about culture.
Yes, about cultures, yes. And of course, because maybe in Indonesia we call it as a high context, maybe low context and high context. It's a fact. Yeah, maybe. Maybe Harry.
Kita selalu bila membicarakan tentang teori atau ilmu itu, kita ada dua sisinya, ya. Seperti kita bicara yang tadi, diam itu bagus.
Diam adalah emas. In Indonesia, white is gold. Silence is gold.
Ya. Tapi saya pikir sudah tiba masanya teori-teori ataupun pemikiran-pemikiran dari bara ini ataupun pemikiran-pemikiran dari budaya kita sendiri yang lama itu harus disemak semula. Saya bagi contoh ya. Selalunya saya masih ingat di zaman kecil-kecil dulu, zaman kanak-kanak dulu, kalau ayah saya, bapak saya bawa saya ke masjid itu, dimintanya duduk di belakang, jangan misi. Akhirnya hari ini ramai anak-anak tidak suka ke masjid. Sebab kalau ke masjid itu
Suruh diam.
bukan saja anak-anak yang dimarahi,
Bapaknya juga dimarahi.
Mungkin disebabkan oleh perbezaan generasi, masa. Seperti juga hari ini. Nampaknya hari ini ya para ibu lebih mendominasi dalam dunia akademik ini. Saya kita berapa 2, 3, 4. Yang lainnya itu 1000. Jadi apakah mungkin juga sebenarnya kita pemikir peneliti ahli akademik harus melihat pastinya akan ada perubahan disebabkan oleh perubahan generasi itu. Lantas inilah yang harus kita betulkan semula ataupun kita kata revise the current theories, ideas that we have heritage from the West. Terlalu sangat kita itu bergantung pada Barat, sehingga kan kita sendiri tidak ada jati diri untuk mengatakan, oh ini sebenarnya this is our culture. Jadi saya punya pandangan itu.
Oke, terima kasih Pak. Yeah, that's the perspective. That's your standpoint ya, about the Asians or maybe West ya, cultures. Ada lagi mau menanyakan? Bu Ami mungkin mau respon? Ya, Pas Agus, Pas Hari, Pak Agus ya, Pak Hari Eko dan Pak Agus, maybe you want to adding something?
Sedikit. Nah, tuh. Nah, itu diwakilin.
Di sini bapak-bapak tidak sulit berbicara langsung. Enggak. Iya, itu mas katanya Bu. Ya. Tapi maybe Bu Ami maybe sebentar ya, boleh. Oh, Pak Hari. Oh ya Pak Hari Eko. Mau menambahkan? Iya, bapak-bapak ini.
Tadi Bapak Pali, saya mas-mas aja ya. Thank you. Can you translate it? Uridu an atakalam bilughat
To translate because langsung saja tidak apa-apa dengan bahasa. Iya.
atakalam bilughat al-arabiyyah. Naam.
Naam.
Okay, thank you. You can see Dr. Rum. It's interesting that you can speak here with us and dialogue with us. I want to say about thing that in Islam there's it's interesting that Budi Bahasa in Malaysia or maybe Budi Pekerti, right? In Islam, we said that in communication Islamic, al-adabu fawqal ilm, politeness and pekerti is above the science. So maybe this that yang menyebabkan negara-negara Islam dalam artian Malaysia, Indonesia itu lebih condong bermalu-malu ria. Malu-malu, shy, and they padahal ketika kita bicara kenapa suara saya seperti ini, kan? Ketika kita bicara mereka mahasiswa ini diam, polite, tapi di sosial media mereka radikal. Jadi mereka terdiam, mereka diam karena mungkin faktor tidak enak. They only speak when they disuruh berbicara, tapi di sosial media mereka cukup luar biasa. Dan ini menjadi salah satu tantangan komunikasi. Ternyata komunikasi secara langsung itu dihadapi oleh masyarakat, oleh mahasiswa-mahasiswa kita itu, mereka tidak berani bertatap muka secara langsung ketika sudah di era sosial media seperti ini. Nah, itu mungkin nanti bisa menjadi salah satu poin, karena ini nanti akan kembali lagi ke bagaimana fake news dan hoax itu terjadi. Kalau tadi di Malaysia ada MC, di Indonesia pun sudah ada Kominfo yang untuk menangkal berita-berita hoax, apakah berita ini hoax atau tidak, berita ini palsu atau tidak, itu di Indonesia pun ada Kominfo. Ada. Saya lama di Malaysia dulu TKI itu. Ya, kemudian di Indonesia ada Kominfo. Cuman kan yang menjadi masalah the speed of spreading that message is very very high. So we cannot interrupt that the spread of the message until the message sudah beredar ke masyarakat sudah pada paham, baru kemudian ada klarifikasi bahwa ini adalah fake news. Nah, ini juga nanti akan berkaitan dengan ke arah sana. Itu paling mungkin sedikit tambahan dari saya, Mbak.
Yeah, maybe you want to give the kasih, Dokter. Ya, kajian ini juga berkaitan dengan satu teori, which is theory self-presentation by government. Saya pinjam teori dari Sociology 1957. Bila bercakap tentang self-presentation, dia diandaikan government pada peringkat berkenaan menggunakan platform which is kita panggil pentas. Pentas teater. Yang pelakonnya adalah communicator. So now we move that platform to the social media, or might be the internet platform. Yang lagi membahaya because that platform tidak mempunyai audience yang berhadapan. Dianggap bebas. Freedom. So kenapa netizen sekarang agak berani ke depan dengan fakta yang agak luar jangka, because of there is no audience yang nampak face to face. So kenapa saya setuju dengan pandangan doktor. Sebab kenapa? Di depan kita ni semua nampaknya baik-baik belaka. Kan? Ada etiknya dalam berbicara. Bahasanya dijaga. Sebab kita membawa peran sebagai dosen. Kemungkinan di belakangnya, ianya sebagai satu cyber trooper yang banyak jari semua fakta. Ini saya ambil contoh ya. Contoh saja dengan rasa hati. Dan kemungkinan itu berlaku di mana-mana sahaja. Walaupun dia educated or not educated well.
Ya.
So itu juga menjadi salah satu asbab kenapa satu fake news tu lebih mudah diterima. Dan paling sedih sekarang bila masuk ke tahap pemilu atau di Malaysia dipanggil PRU, yang menjadi populis itu akan menang because of the netizen yang membantu untuk menaikkan undian, bukan atas dasar kepribadian ataupun keprofesionalan calon. Okey, itulah kot saya punya respons.
Seperti itu, Pak. Oke. Ada lagi yang mau menambahkan mungkin Bu Ami? Mangga.
Cuman berkaitan karena tidak terlihat dan itu sebenarnya saat melakukan Indonesia ini rankingnya termasuk paling apa sih? Nggak usah
Nggak kelihatan yang
enggak. Indonesia ini kan termasuk yang paling tidak sopan se-Asia, ya netizennya gitu. Jadi terlihat bahwa dalam kehidupan yang nyata, maksudnya tatap muka face to face dengan di balik layar tadi itu kelihatannya berbeda seperti yang tadi dokter katakan. Dan itu menurut data kan seperti itu ya, sangat memalukan sih sebenarnya. Karena selama ini kan Indonesia sebenarnya dikenal ramah tamah, sopan santun, tapi ternyata begitu di di media sosial, di digital media itu justru sebaliknya. Dan tapi saya tertarik yang tadi dokter katakan ya, gimana kita tidak terkooptasi oleh teori-teori barat gitu. Nah, gimana gitu caranya kita bisa menghasilkan teori yang khas Melayu deh, Indonesia atau Malaysia atau Brunei gitu yang mungkin ada nilai-nilai Islamnya ya, kemudian kearifan nenek moyang kita gitu. Karena tapi kalau bicara cultural communication kan ting to me gitu ya, itu sebenarnya China ya. Nah, China mungkin masih ada Asianya, maksudnya Indonesia masih ada rumpunnya. Nah, mungkin itu nah itu. Tapi kalau barat kan sebenarnya memang berbeda sekali ya. Nah, gimana dokter? Apa kita perlu kolaborasi untuk mencari cultural communication khas?
Ini juga pagi tadi saya berbincang dengan Prof. Ahmad Muyana. Saya sebut ya, sudah sampai masanya kita harus, terutamanya kita di Nusantara ini, Malaysia, Indonesia, Brunei, Singapura, malah Thailand juga, untuk kita adakan kolaborasi dari segi research dan juga publication, dan sudah sampai masanya untuk kita mengemukakan, mencadangkan the new theories that can explain about us. Saya bagi contoh ya, PhD saya dalam bidang health communication, dan saya memperkenalkan Islamic health communication. Bukan mudah untuk saya lakukan kerana tesis saya itu dibuat di Australia. Tantangannya cukup pada peringkat awal lagi semasa proposal defense, saya mendapat major correction. Tapi itu tidak bisa untuk ubah saya untuk mempromosikan ataupun memperkenalkan what is Islamic health communication. Jadi kita harus ada semangat juang yang begitu ya. Malah satu lagi yang saya fikir ialah sudah sampai masanya kita berkolaborasi. Kita ada buku-buku yang diterbitkan di Indonesia, lantas kita translate bahasa Malaysia, bahasa Brunei, bahasa Thailand yang sesuai dengan masyarakat itu. Masa yang sama juga rakan-rakan di Indonesia sudah cukup translate buku-buku barat itu. translate buku rekan-rekan kita se-Nusantara itu di Malaysia dan sebagainya. Itu satu strategi yang boleh kita bulatkan hari ini.
Jadi biar nanti Barat yang mengadopsi culture kita, biar dibalikan. Oke, baik. Bapak harmonis wah luar biasa. Mangga silahkan our Vice Dean ya. Deputy.
Ya, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ya, tamu-tamu yang terhormat, saya mohon maaf. Tadi ada 3 kegiatan. Barusan baru memberikan sambutan untuk lembaga mahasiswa kita yang abdi pengabdi masyarakat tadi ya. Mahasiswa kesejahteraan sosial. Di atas ada seminar tentang penyiaran. Ya, terima kasih dokter. Sebenarnya pengalaman dokter itu kita juga sama di sini menurut saya. Ya, ini mohon maaf. Awalnya kita ketika coba melahirkan di sini kan dokter kita punya 3 konsentrasi di komunikasi, 3 peminatan. Ada peminatan PR, public relation, ada peminatan advertising, periklanan, ada peminatan broadcasting. Ketika saya baru selesai dari S3 di UKM Kebangsaan Malaysia, yang menarik bagi saya ada Islamic Communication. Itu grand teorinya. Kemudian dari situ kemudian ada Prof. Gani di Pusat Pengajian Islam, FPI, UKM. Dia bicara tentang komunikasi Islami juga. Karena ada buku benar bicara Islamic Communication. Lalu saya ketika sampai Indonesia terpikir, kenapa kita tidak coba juga melakukan hal yang sama, tapi turunnya dari itu gitu. Maka di prodi komunikasi kita coba yang namanya public relation, yang Islamic public relation itu. Nah, makanya adalah mata kuliah itu di kita kan itu kan. Ya, PR syariah nama kita. Kita sebutnya bukan Islam tapi syariah. PR syariah kita sebut namanya. Dan mata kuliah. Nah, kemudian yang diajar oleh kalau nggak salah ibu kita ini ya. Bu Siska ya, diajar itu. Nah, kemudian advertising juga berkes juga sama. Tapi memang sama juga dokter. Kita memang kendalanya adalah pertama, hasil riset itu sangat jarang sekali ya, tentang itu. Kalau sudah turunannya gitu. Tapi kalau yang Islamic Communication sih banyak itu. Walaupun penekanannya bukan kepada Islam, lebih banyak itu adalah disebut dengan religion communication yang guna ratna itu. Kan biasanya kita pakai itu deh. Islam ini masih sedikit, yang banyak adalah Konghucu, agama-agama yang di luar Islam. Apalagi kita menurunkannya gitu kan. Itu makanya. Tapi alhamdulillah sampai sekarang di kita ya, biasalah dinamikanya ada dokter yaitu. Sekali lagi hasil riset kita terbatas juga, kemudian kajian-kajian dalam bentuk buku, ibu, jurnal-jurnal juga masih terbatas itu. Nah, menurut saya ini menarik nih, menurut saya Bokta ini ditindaklanjuti saja menurut saya nih dokter kita. Nah, tadi saya juga diskusi teman-teman di atas tentang broadcasting. Saya bilang saya punya tulisan namanya broadcasting syariah, broadcasting penyiaran syariah, dan itu sudah saya publish di jurnal yang di Provinsi Jambi. Kita ada Provinsi Sumatera itu, kalau kita sama ini adalah Sinta namanya, Sinta 2 kita sudah ada kita itu. Nah, kemudian ada lagi di atasnya kita punya buku dokter. Itu sama, Islamic Communication, komunikasi Islam. Kita punya bukunya. Nah, ketika di KPI, kalau di Malaysia namanya Suruhanjaya Komunikasi Multimedia, SKKM itu. Kita di Indonesia namanya adanya KPI, Komisi Penyiaran Indonesia. Ada bukunya dokter yang baru, Religiositas di Layar Kaca. Kita ada. Ini itu ada, menurut saya ini menarik. Ada tapi poin saya adalah tadi bahwa memang kolaborasi ini sebuah keniscayaan, keharusan yang tidak bisa kita tolak. Kenapa? Rugi sekali kalau kita selalu menjadi, kalau bahasa saya ada namanya imperialisme intelektual. Kita ini kan korban dari teori-teori yang bukan berasal dari kita sendiri gitu loh. Nah, padahal kita punya yang namanya pencirian. Kita punya karakteristik yang itu berbeza ya. Bisa saya masih ingat satu-satu. Tapi udah banyak saya lupa bahasa-bahasa Melayu. Iya karena itu. Nah ini menurut saya ini penting kita lakukan menurut saya. Cuma sekarang tinggal lagi ya bagaimana memfollow up saja dokter itu baik nanti dalam bentuk riset maupun dalam tadi teman-teman yang dari KPI itu bicara book chapter. Jadi akan menulis tentang jurnalisme profetik, jurnalisme kenabian. Ini menarik. Ternyata ini perspektif Malaysia seperti apa, Indonesia seperti apa, itu menarik. Ini ada book chapter yang akan bikin oleh teman-teman itu nanti dari PP Muhammadiyah itu kan itu menarik menurut saya teman. Ini nggak apa kita follow up aja, iya. Ini sekarang udah, tapi terakhir tanggal 15 tulisan harus masuk katanya 15 Desember ini. Saya kira itu mungkin komentar sederhana saya. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam. Amin.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you, Pak Harmonis. Maybe you want to give reason, or maybe we have to end this sessions. Bu Okta, maybe you want to add something?
Yang luar biasa pada siang dan sore hari ini. Dr. Hairi, Dr. Romlah, dan Dr. Adiba, we are really glad that you come to Universitas Muhammadiyah Jakarta, especially in Faculty of Social and Political Science, talking about communications. And then we're glad to elaborate about research collaboration. Maybe in this little time we can talk about a little bit specific topics, maybe that we can concrete with the output for the next or the future research collaboration, so that we can go through that topics with our lecturers, and we can talk a little bit maybe in this limited time. Itu mungkin Mbak about the collaboration research.
Yeah, about collaboration. Maybe the chance for us to do some writing things like to create an articles or maybe journals together, or maybe the next agenda about international communications or ICOM 2004, or maybe about the opportunity for us to do some lecturer exchange or maybe students mobility. How about that, and how we can do that with UUM maybe?
Ya, Alhamdulillah. Tadi sebelum kita ke sini pun sudah berbincang dengan Dekan tentang possibility untuk kita buat matching research grant.
Yeah.
Saya fikir apa yang boleh kita buat sekarang ialah at least we don't be too ambitious. Ya. Sekurang-kurangnya kita ada satu tim dari Muhammadiyah untuk duduk dan cadangkan satu topik research, dan kita di pihak UUM juga will form a team and to think about potential research. Then after that, once we really have the team, then the both team probably we will have an online meeting.
Yeah.
So that my suggestion is better if we can have one topic of research, but the data is from Indonesia
Yeah.
and Malaysia,
Yeah.
so that we can come up at least at the end of the day with 3 publications.
Okay.
One talking about
Indonesia,
the topic,
market.
the research that the phenomena in Indonesia, one in Malaysia, and another one is comparison.
Yeah.
Oh,
So that's my suggestion, that kalau boleh kita carilah topik yang kita katakan sama ya.
yeah.
So as for that, mungkin di peringkat awal Ibu Okta mungkin boleh kena pasti dulu gitu, dan provide us with the interest of the topic.
Yeah.
Then we will also provide our team, and if we can agree on the topic, then the next step is we have an online meeting of both So that we will do the kind of like similar research, but the data is from different groups. So that's about the research. Tentang visiting lectures.
Visiting lecturers.
Kita punya semester baru nanti akan bermula sekitar March.
Oh, Maret.
March. And another semester will be in September.
Maret dan September Bu Okta ya berarti ya.
Jadi kalau this also very important to be too ambitious. At least we identify one lecturer that we can consider as visiting lecturer to here. Di pihak Muhammadiyah also the same thing. And not necessarily that you have to be there physically, because now we can do
Online.
Jadi tak semestinya juga topik ataupun mata pelajaran itu harus yang ditawarkan di Muhammadiyah. It can be anything that offer in UM, you can also teach there. The same thing. So apa yang kita akan buat, saya akan minta Dr. Adiba untuk provide list of courses that we going to offer in next coming semester in March. Dan based on that, mungkin ada seorang dosen di sini sudah berminat, for example PR or advertising. Jadi di pihak kita juga kita akan minta the list of courses for the next semester. At least we try to get one. So we start with one. Right? To start. This is how kita boleh buat lah. Mungkin juga ada baru 4 hari di sini, tetapi ketarikannya itu sangat tinggi. Mau datang lagi ke sini. Atas apa tidak pasti. Kemarin kami spend 4 hours di Tamrin.
Tamrin cuti. Ibu-ibu tinggal.
So instead of we have, let's say that 6 online class, 4 we can have like online. Maybe if they want, or if you want to also, you can go over there to deliver the physical class. Itu saya lihat really practical lah, to implement this. Itu antara yang boleh saya cadangkan.
Oke, terima kasih Bu. Bu Okta mungkin.
It's very quite interesting, Dr. Khairi. And then maybe for the topics for the research, can we have about the major? What major in communication department of UUM? We have 3 major, and then from UUM, what is the major? Only communication, like that.
Subject maybe.
We have various experts. We have development communication, communication, and
health communication.
organizational communication.
Okay.
We also have PR.
PR also. Okay. Advertising also. Not.
Yeah. We have.
Okay.
Apa yang kita akan buat? Kita akan provide the list of our
di grup
lecturer interest
and their
research
topics or interests.
Yes.
So based on that, maybe you can identify. I want to do this topic. Sekarang ini pun, if you can mention, also is very big.
Yes.
But when you see the list, then you can have a more specific idea, the specific topic.
Okay.
So we can talk about it later, and for further information, maybe we can create a group about the collaborations with UUM. Okay. Is this enough, Bu Okta, or maybe? Okay. Thank you Bapak Ibu semuanya, and thank you for Dr. Khairi, Dr. Adiba for the insight for us, of course, and for coming in Universitas Muhammadiyah Jakarta. Kami tunggu juga datang lagi nggak apa-apa, ke Tamcit boleh. Ke Tamcit lagi nanti ditemani oleh Bu Akhtar juga. Ini tenang ya, saya senang ke Tamcit. Oke, Bapak Ibu, this is the end of our sessions from University Utara Malaysia. Thank you for coming. I have to close the session ya. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ada penyerahan plakat. Maybe we can take a photo in front of the background, of course. Please, ya.
All of us.
All of us, oke boleh ya. Foto bersama dulu. Foto dulu. Ya, foto ya plakat dulu terus foto. Oke, plakat dulu Pak Wadek. Oh, Pak Wadek, ya.
Mohon berkenan mungkin Pak Wadek, Wakil Dekan kita, Bapak Harmonis untuk memberikan plakat, kemudian juga didampingi oleh Bu Okta, Kaprodi kita, Head of Communications Department di sebelah sana ya, biar ada backgroundnya.
Udah selesai ya acaranya? Oh, mohon maaf karena acara di atas baru selesai. Tenang. Baru acara itu ya. Baru selesai.
Berkenan untuk para speakers, to all speakers, please come forward because there are certificate.